There are various planets in astrology that can bring out the dark side of a zodiac sign. Pluto is connected to death, life and death, rebirth, toxicity, and trauma. Pluto's role in bringing out the darkness is to create an expose, and it's to help empower you, because when we're dealing with Pluto, we're dealing with the psyche, the psychology of what is going on. And with Aquarius, we'll find that we are dealing with the psychology of what is going on amongst groups of friends and hierarchies. And Aquarius ruling over popularity amongst these groups of friends, or also the word privilege is a big thing here. So Pluto's role is to expose neurotic energy, neurotic versus erotic. And they both play an important role. Okay, neurotic is about this, I would see it as like this either hyper vigilante psychology, this person who has to really fight for their survival, or somebody who also can be extremely paranoid, right? And they're looking at the world through this gaze of feeling like they were once less in power, right? They were once victimized, and they need to fight to get their power back, or to make sure no one puts them in a less empowered place again. And that's my version of neurotic and how it works with Pluto. Now, into erotic. Erotic actually has a lot of play on a more healthier mindset. We find that erotic can show us that we are safe to have sex. In its most basic thing, that's what erotica is bringing. It's bringing a sense of safety to the psychology to have sex, because if you think about how the act of sex and how vulnerable it is, it actually can be a position where you put yourself and you are very much so could be exposed. You could be preyed upon. Okay, now there's different ways, because the partner yourself could be preyed upon, right? But also you and the partner in an act. Let's say like we were like, I know this is crazy, but imagine your animals, human animals out in nature. Like, to have sex means that you need to have protection around you to even do the act. Now, granted, in today's day and age, we have our homes, our bedrooms, we have safety, but in a lot of ways, that's how vulnerable sex is. And Pluto brings out that when we're in an erotic state, we actually feel safe to be in the act, right? Because what we also really learn through sensuality and sex is that emotionally, mentally, and physically, sex is this beautiful balance of pain and pleasure. So one actually can experience the pleasure of pain in sex. It's some real dark stuff. But that's where we get to when we're looking at Pluto. So now when we take Pluto and we put it into Aquarius, we're dealing with one of the, I like to work with a lot of different belief sets, and I like to pull on the 7 sins to help kind of expose the shadows. And again, we're not being very harshly critical or judgmental and be like, you should not do this, right? It's not about being strict, but it's just about recognizing with empathy, understanding, compassion that the sins or the 7 sins can bring us into a state of suffering. And when I look at Aquarius and the role of popularity, hierarchies, and social circles, one of the sins that I think is really big is greed, envy, and lust. I want to speak more about envy, because this is the real reason why I made this video, is learning the lessons of envy, and also working with Pluto, going into Aquarius, and how Pluto can help empower you towards envy. And not towards envy, but towards healing envy, right? So when you're in a place of non-privilege, let's say either in society, hierarchy, or even within a social group or social sphere, you may actually experience heavy amounts of envy because you are seen as lesser than already. This creates a sense of archetypal hierarchy of what is the value system that is putting you at the bottom of the rung. And through the eyes of envy, you will focus specifically on those things that are putting you in the lower part of this privilege. So a lot of this also has to do with perspective, but a lot of people will agree, okay, well, if you're in a financial bracket, right, and you're judging yourself financially, if you don't have enough money, then you're clearly at the bottom, right? So certain things are logically proven that you have to be at the bottom. But let's say we talk about something like pretty privilege, right? And you're the popular girl at school or something like that because you're the prettiest. And then you have another person who's not because they're not the prettiest. Now everyone can agree, like, okay, well, the person who's at the bottom, this is why they're not pretty. And so there is a little bit of a logic there, but there's also a little bit of a gray area because when we're talking about the topic of pretty and attraction and beauty, that can be, subjective sometimes. So we're not putting anything as a bad guy or a good guy, but we're just looking at what provokes envy. And quite often it can logically make sense to be envious, right? Because if you're in a financial circle where you have less, you can feel envious. And of course, in a circle where they judge you for beauty, that naturally happens as well. In preparation of Pluto moving into Aquarius, you are called to radically accept yourself in incredible ways, dealing with a lot of the energies in the sky right now. Uranus and Taurus, Pluto moving into Aquarius. You're called to radically accept yourself. So what you have to do if you find that you're at the bottom of the rung in some sort of area of life or area of social circles, you actually have to analyze, self-evaluate your neurotic nature, because you're going to have the tendency to be more neurotic, being that you are in the bottom rung. See, the issue with climbing the tiers of success or becoming at the top of the circle of privilege, one of the reasons that it's not an easy task to make is that it requires changing your experience of things even when you're not actually experiencing it yet. For example, when somebody isn't financially competent yet, right? They can just continuously react to their environment, their circumstances, and their reality as if they are continually giving out the frequency and experience of being in poverty, of being poor. And so while it might seem to somebody else, oh, well, just do this and just do that, it's very difficult for a person who is in a very low state to pull them out of that state, because a lot of it isn't just action. A lot of it is mental and a state of being. And you can also find yourself still neurotic when you reach your destination, because let's say for somebody who was once poor and now they're rich, they might still have this sense of not being safe and worry that they're going to lose all their money, or worry that they don't know what to do with this money. There's a lot of reasons why Pluto is working its way through Aquarius and helping people to expose where they have their own neurotic nature. And so while my example gives it to people at the bottom of the rung, it really doesn't matter. You can be neurotic at any part of the hierarchy in society, or whatever your hierarchy of privilege is. So Pluto in Aquarius is helping us to see how we can recognize our enviousness, and really transform it and alchemize it so you are powerful. And if you do this, you may very much so find that you will become the privilege, you'll become the popular. And if you do this in the right way, you become such an incredibly beautiful agent of Pluto in society, which is that you don't hoard and you don't hold on to your privilege. You're philanthropic, and you give back and you empower others. And when you're playing the game of Pluto, I find in manifestation, Pluto quite often, as a human race, we take the concept of our power and we hold it just for ourselves. But this is where toxicity can start to fester. Really, the way to continuously cleanse your power and keep your power pure is to empower others. So once you overcome your own envy and you climb the rungs of society and be at the top, which Pluto in Aquarius for the next 20 years wants to do, but it's going to start showing this to you in 2024, you also have to keep in mind to give back, to safely give back. And that's what eroticism is also on a big major scale, because we can look at erotica and it's like, it's this very hot and sexy experience that you have with another person. But you can also have erotic energy with a group of people because you empower them. And it's quite an intimate experience for you, this one individual, to have so much power, to empower a group of people. That's also what's potentially here for you if you're ready to work on your inner trauma and specifically looking at envy. So let's get into looking at envy. Now, they say that comparison can rob you of your happiness. And it's very true, especially when you just stay in the space of comparison. But when you're dealing with envy, one of the ways to manifest with envy is to love and care for the part of you that has this experience. Because the part of you that has this experience is justified a little bit in being like, well, they have it, and why don't I? This part of you projects what you think you should be onto other people. And it creates this kind of backlash where you continuously feel like you are not enough. And it creates a severe level of insecurity and disempowerment. And this is what envy really does to people when they just stay in it. But when you are ready to manifest from a state of envy, you're recognizing that you have a mentality and a psychology that is not like the person that you want to be like or the position that you want to be in. And that's the first step. So let's take the example of an atypical, let's say a young lady, right, who is of right age and is experiencing really bad situations in relationships, and they want to experience incredibly high intimacy in relationships. This is such a good example because in today's day and age, there's a lot going on between the debate of gender wars and what men should do versus what women should do, and a lot of that. So if you're a person who is feeling like you're not as beautiful or as pretty or as attractive, this is an example. I'm basically using this example, right? And how you can actually continuously feel that sense of envy because somebody on the other side, right, the grass is greener, this illusion that somebody has it better than you, that you're projecting onto them, that they have what you're looking for. And the truth behind that is the grass is always greener in the sense that the person does have what you want, right? And you don't have the experiences in your psyche to attain what they are experiencing. That's the key. So let me say that again. A person who doesn't feel attractive, it's really hard for them to become attractive because, one, they're at the bottom of the rung. They are illusioned by the rules of attractiveness. But most importantly, they've never experienced what it feels like to be attractive. Therefore, how do they access it if they've never experienced that before? And this is what creates the cycle that keeps you in an underprivileged position. So this person might say, okay, I'm ready to be attractive. Let me put my money into taking care of myself. Let me start to look a certain way. Let me start to act a certain way. And let me move towards those things because we believe that in the art of doing that we can actually experience it. And that's a half truth because you'll find that a lot of people who haven't experienced what it means to be attractive can do all the things that make them feel attractive. They can even lose the weight, they can get a full makeover, but they still aren't creating the relationship that they really want to have. And that's because they still haven't actually experienced what it feels like to experience what it's like to be attractive and to attract the type of person that they want to attract. So this is when we talk about doing plus being when it comes to overcoming a state of underprivilege and empowering yourself. And here's this example. So this person, they are working on themselves. They're starting to feel a little bit more attractive because maybe they're seeing physical changes. They're doing better with their makeup, right? But they still don't feel attractive. So they might engage in a conversation with somebody, right, over someone being beautiful, and they'll never feel like they're that someone being beautiful. They might engage with a conversation with the friend or with somebody that they're really like interested in, and they might, maybe they talk about a really beautiful actor, actress, or singer, and they have never experienced what it's like to be beautiful, so they start to feel envy, right? They may also be, especially when you're at the toxicity of Pluto and you're dealing with disempowerment, you are a, so someone who is in a lower sense of privilege in their psyche are still prey to many types of people. So, for example, somebody who's not attracting an intimate partnership or not feeling attractive enough to do that, they might be a prey to some of these, podcasts who might put them down and be like, look, you look ugly. You'll never be as beautiful. Just accept it. Or they might also be prey to some of these, leaders, these cult leaders who are like, you know, don't even bother looking for a partner because all these men are trash anyway, right? And that in a lot of ways it can be truth, but it's also a trauma bond of truth. So it starts to look at truth in a very specific way, and Pluto is about searching for the truth, big time. It's a detective for the truth. And you may be privy to finding truths that keep you in that place of being unattractive. And so some of these examples, especially being a Black woman, it's like, you know, they don't, people don't, aren't attractive to Black women. And so it's a truth that feels right to you because you're in that position where you're experiencing it. And so you're continuously a prey to those ideas, and it keeps you there. It keeps you in that place. Let's say you're that person who is, working on your body, working on yourself, you're doing the action, but you still aren't being the attraction that you want to be. You can easily still be a prey when it comes to Pluto. You become a very attractive person who's extremely insecure. And there's a lot of people who would love to meet somebody like you and prey off of the fact that you are very beautiful, but you don't know it. Or you're very beautiful but you don't feel it. Or you're very attractive, but you aren't being it. And so Pluto does bring out, similar to Mars, and this is why when Mars and Pluto come together for creating the energies of Scorpio, we find predator energy. But Pluto shows us where we can be prey and succumb to predator energy no matter where it is. And in Aquarius, this happens to be a lot in social groups and groups that are forming together. So you could find yourself being a part of the "we're not attractive" group. And the truth is that you really want a relationship that makes you feel attractive and it's intimate and gives you everything you want, but because you're not being it, and because you don't see how to be it, or you just don't know how to be it, you connect to groups that just continue to reinforce the same narrative of yourself. So let's put you back into this little discussion that you're having with somebody, and they are talking about somebody attractive, and it's not you. Okay, if you are somebody who doesn't believe you're attractive, then this conversation is going to evoke and provoke more than likely insecurities. And so when we look at the shadow of envy, one of the things that can help you to overcome it is to actually ask yourself, what is it like to be that person who feels attractive? So you deal with the truth for yourself. And your biggest truth is that you don't feel attractive, therefore you're not being attractive, right? You may even do the things that make you attractive, but if you don't if you don't be the other half, which is being attractive, which you think is something external, but it's actually something of your psyche and how you think and feel about yourself and how all that comes together, it's a very different story. So now when you think about somebody that you're envious of, instead of just look at them from the outside, look at them from inside their shoes. When you start to look at somebody from inside their shoes, you naturally project what you're always doing anyway, projecting onto them the fantasy or the dream experience of yourself that you can never experience. And it can be hard to say, oh, I am attractive when you've never experienced what it's like to be an attractive person. So take the person that you're envious of, right? And pretend to be them for a day, or meditate and experience what it's like to have different experiences like that person. And what you may come to find is, dang, you're experiencing completely different things and you're having different problems. So a person who's not attractive has problems, and a person who is attractive have problems, but they have different types of problems. And so to truly use envy and transform it, or to transform the concept of the grass is always greener, is to recognize that as humans across the board, we all have problems. But the person who is not attractive really is wanting the problems that the person who is. So a person who is not attractive may experience a lack of people coming towards them, where a person who is attractive has a lot of people coming towards them. Therefore, you may meditate and experience, dang, what is it like to have everybody coming towards me? And my new problem is I'm not really sure who's to pick. That's a brand new problem to have. Going back to the conversation between you and another person over an attractive person, if you put yourself in the shoes of an attractive person and you experience that conversation, it's a whole different experience. You won't feel threatened by the fact that you're talking about an attractive person and you feel like you're not them. You would actually experience that you're talking about an attractive person, but you feel like you are them. Therefore, there's no sense of a threat, and there's a safety that is created within yourself, which then creates the erotica that we're all really looking for, which is basically, at its most basis, erotica is the safety to be vulnerable and intimate. The erotica, in this definition of how I'm explaining it, is the mind's ability to not experience a threat, and to feel so safe that it wants to be intimate, naked, or vulnerable with somebody. So this is a technique, a manifestation technique that I like to use with the planets to help the planet express itself, which is it wants to empower you. Pluto wants to empower you. It doesn't want to come and just expose your toxicity and just make you deal with the guilt and the shame of it. It wants you to alchemize that toxicity. And this is one way that I have been working on doing it. So you'll be seeing a couple of meditations where I actually work on that very specific issue when it comes to beauty, because you know my channel is a lot about beauty, and helping people to feel that what they can't actually feel until they be it. So again, let's just reiterate this concept if you just want to start right now, which is, if you are experiencing envy, you have to recognize that you are not basically capable or competent of knowing what it's like to feel the space of desire or success. And so when you recognize that truth, you recognize a lot of things about yourself. You recognize that you have a running narrative that's negative. You're privy to attract other people who will share that narrative and reinforce that narrative. And so you have to fight the urge that envy has. And all the sins have envy. All the sins have an urge, right? They do. They all have an urge, a very enticing plate of an urge to dive more into the sin and feel even darker, deeper feelings. But really, it's like sinking in a swamp. It's like sinking in muddy waters. You never actually find the answer through reinforcing that narrative. So then you recognize, wow, I have never experienced what it's like to experience this. Let me walk in the shoes of someone who has, right? And of course, because you're projecting onto this person, you don't really know what it's like, but there's a part of you that needs that projection, that needs to work with that in order to imagine what it's like. That's where the manifestation and the frequency of being starts to actually experience it in the state of being, because in your imagination, in your subconscious, as you imagine what it's like to be this person, your body doesn't actually know the difference between it being you and that person. And so the more that you imagine what it's like to walk in their shoes, the more that you start to feel it in your body, what it feels like. And you'll see the slight differences. It's usually slight nuances in how you react and relate to the world. And you'll see that the truth in getting to where you want to be and climbing the ladder of success, climbing the ladder of hierarchy, popularity, privilege, and groups, is to embody it, is to do it and to be it. And so with Pluto in Aquarius, that's my message for you. Stay tuned for a lot more content when it comes to 2024 transits, as well as meditations and affirmations to actually manifest using these energies. Talk to you soon. Peace and love.